Hello and welcome to today's video. And today we're going to be talking about the 5 wealth building tips and strategies for beginners. In fact, this isn't just for beginners, this is for anybody and everybody at whatever stage they're at of building their wealth, because this is about the fundamentals, the things that people either don't know about or completely lose sight of or forget about in their wealth building journey. So I thought it's a great thing to do to go back to basics and talk about these 5 tips, these core fundamentals to keep in mind. So the first one is really straightforward. Every single month, make sure you set aside 10% of your income, of your cash flow, to build your wealth. Now, that sounds really dull and boring, doesn't it? I'm afraid wealth building isn't a crash bang wallop, massively exciting every second of the day. Wealth building is about the long term. So if you're looking for get rich quick ideas, this video will not give you any of those. In fact, none of my videos will, because it isn't true. It doesn't happen that way. It builds on fundamentals, which are the first one: set aside just 10% of your income. Now, 10% could be only a small amount, but you'd be absolutely astounded how quickly, when it's put to work properly, how that will grow. Okay, so what we're talking about there is getting your cash flow, your money, into an environment where it starts to work for you. Rather than you and your time having to do all of the work and all of the cash generation all of the time, your money can be set aside and working for you when you're asleep, when you're working as well. So it's like a double powerhouse. Okay. Second part of this is to always pay yourself first. This is one of the fundamentals that wealthy people stick by, is they always pay themselves first. It's part of that mindset of, when money comes in, I get a portion of that to keep. The rest goes on my bills, the rest goes elsewhere, but I have to keep a portion of what I'm generating. Because when you look at the stats, and I got this from a company called Raisin, that to date, and this is just in the UK, but I'm sure this applies pretty much typically around the globe, and certainly in tier one nations. Would you believe that 6.5% of people, and remember the UK is a developed and supposedly wealthy nation, 6% of people have no savings whatsoever. They are literally paycheck to paycheck. And when disaster hits, such as we've got at the moment in COVID, they are, for want of a better word, completely stuffed. There's nothing to fall back on. So 6.5% of people have no savings at all. I hope you're not in that boat. Almost 26% of people have less than £1,000 in savings. Okay, and when you think of it in these terms, the average income in the UK is £23,000 per year. So let's say this individual has been earning £23,000 for 10 years. That's almost £250,000, and has set aside less than £1,000 for themselves. That's less than 0.5%, and considerably less than 0.5% of their total income of almost £250,000 in 10 years that they've actually kept for themselves. So think about it in this terms. In tip one, set aside 10% for yourself. Keep some of your money in your own pocket. Don't let it all go out to everybody else. Keep some back for a rainy day. For example, it's an ideal time to be talking about this in COVID. The people who are struggling, and it's not just the poor, the middle classes are struggling because they've lived up to their limits. They've not set cash aside and investments aside for a rainy day, and not necessarily a rainy day of their own cause or fault. Yeah, this is the natural world, the world out there that's hit them and hit them hard. So tip one, keep 10% aside for yourself to be invested for wealth generation. So on to tip number two. Tip number two. Rather than a tip, this is a principle, really. And to get this firmly in your mind, there is no way on earth, other than robbing a bank, which I don't recommend to anybody, there is no way on earth to get rich quick. And if anybody tells you otherwise, show them the door. Okay, there's no way to get rich quick. The, the way to look at wealth building is to enjoy building wealth steadily, to actually really get involved with it and embrace it wholeheartedly, and to actually make your money work for you, not for somebody else. It should be put to hard graft for yourself. And this process, when you actually get involved in it, is actually really enjoyable. So I'd encourage you to enjoy the wealth building process. Just go back to tip number one, set 10% aside and get it to work for you. And you'll be amazed, even though I say, there's no way of getting rich quick, but there are ways of getting rich steadily, and you will be astounded at the impact that multiplication and compounding gets to work for you. And as you start to build your wealth, it gathers more and more pace. So although we really shouldn't be trying to get rich quick and not look for those kind of schemes, it's incredible how quickly wealth can build with the right attitude and implementing the 5 steps that I'm going through with you today. The other part of this is always to spread your risk. One of the big risk points that most people have at the moment is that they've only got one source of income. That is their job or their business. What if that falls over? You are high and dry. So spread your risk. Now, very often people think about spreading your risk is, don't put your money only on Forex. Don't put your money only on stocks and shares. Yes, that is one element of spreading your risk, the type of investments you use and you employ inside your portfolio. But think of it a different way. Spread your risk so that the income and the wealth you build is not solely dependent on you, your expertise, and your time. How else can you generate wealth and income and security without it totally depending on you being there? Okay, so that's tip number 2. There's no way of getting wealthy and rich very quickly, but you can do it speedily and steadily and have a great time doing it. Okay, on to tip number 3. So, tip number 3, identify your luxuries and your necessities. So, I see time and time again people spending just for the thrill of it, just for the sake of getting a quick fix almost. It's almost like having Christmas every day, of spending on worthless items that don't build the assets for themselves, and they just spend on luxuries and luxuries and luxuries and get sucked into that materialistic way of life. So what I would do is encourage you, and I'm not doing this to be a party pooper, this is good sound practice. First of all, identify these 3 things. What are your necessities in life? Okay, keeping a roof over your head, feeding yourself and your family, potentially travel expenses to and from your occupation, heating and clothing. Apart from that, we really don't have any necessities. Keep a control over that spending. Secondly, and this one might surprise you, before we get to luxuries, what are the skills and what knowledge can you invest in? And I think I'll do a separate video on this to identify the high value skills that we can, all of us, invest in quite readily to boost our own personal value. So after you've taken care of your necessities, how can you build your skill base? How can you build your knowledge base by investing in yourself for one main purpose? And that is to increase your own personal value out there in the world. There's another way of increasing your value, and that's through experience. To get it out there and actually do it and deliver value to other people, gain more knowledge and more practical experience that further enhances your value out there in the world so that you can generate even more cash flow by being more valuable in yourself. So after you've taken care of your necessities, how can you then reinvest in yourself to bolster your own personal value? And then we can look at luxuries. I'm not saying don't ever buy any luxuries, but don't waste your cash on useless luxuries. Invest in experiences. Spend on luxuries that are experiences that again make you a better person. But treat yourself by all means every once in a while, but at certain points when you have actually earned it, when you've hit a point in your plan of wealth building to say, when I get to this point, I'm going to really treat myself to this. So, and it could be travel. It could be go to, when we're all able to travel, go to a part of the world that enhances your cultural experience or enhances your spiritual experience that you can then fold into your personal wealth growth and your personal value growth. Okay, so identify your luxuries and your necessities and how you're going to add value to yourself so that you can command more wealth out there. Okay, on to tip number 4. So, tip number 4, only invest in what you understand. I'll say that again because this is really important. Only ever invest in what you understand. But you might be saying to me, Simon, I'm only just beginning, but I, I therefore I don't know much about investing. That's fine. Doesn't mean to say that you have to understand it now, because you can do some research. Spend time looking around at alternative ways of investing. There are so many about, and there's so many levels of risk. What I'm saying to you is you don't have to start off by knowing what you can invest in and knowing exactly how it works. What you can do is enjoy the process of actually researching what you can invest in and how it actually works. Enjoy that process. Again, as we were saying in the last tip, is invest in your own knowledge. So that can be investing money in gaining the knowledge. It can be investing time in gaining the knowledge. But research to a level where you thoroughly understand exactly what you are about to invest in. Okay. Secondly, take a deep interest in it. Really understand and get uh, almost like more than a hobby, almost like a paid hobby of this is you do your day-to-day work, but behind the scenes you are building wealth, and you take as much interest, if not more, in that process in gaining the knowledge to build wealth and the understanding and the tracking of how your wealth is building and how to move money around from investment to investment. Just take a deep interest in it. And I can guarantee you it gets gripping. It gets absolutely gripping. The next part of this is only investing in what you understand is, and this you might think, that's an obvious one, Simon, but people do this. Don't get greedy. Don't get greedy and put all your eggs in one basket or get too heavy and too risky. What I would recommend you do is have a plan. Have a 6-month plan and a 12-month plan, a 3-year plan and a 5-year plan where you want your wealth to be and the income generation from that potentially that allows you the freedom and the security to have a life that under your terms, not under anybody else's. This is what really wealth building is about. It's about living life under your terms and not under anybody else's. If you've got the wealth and the financial security to do that, that can't be taken away from you, then that's where you need to be. So create a plan. Where do you want to be in 6 months' time? Where do you want to be in 12 months' time? Where do you want to be in 3 years' time? Where do you want to be in 5 years' time? And then backtrack that. Okay, by this time next month, where do you want to be? What would 10% set aside as we go back to tip number 1? What does that look like? And where's that going to go? When are you going to do your research? What is it that interests you? Where would you like your money to be? Create that plan to keep on track, to make sure you're hitting your goals, but again, to help prevent you being greedy. Don't overstep the bounds because that is when you will come unstuck. And it happens time and time again. So if you take nothing away from this, please do not get greedy. Have a long-term plan and grow your wealth steadily. So tip number 5, only invest in what you understand. If you don't have the knowledge of what that is now, go and get it. Okay, on to tip number 5. Wealth building tip, final stage, number 5 is follow success. Find yourself a mentor. If building the knowledge yourself is not within your skill set, the other way of going about this is to find a mentor that has already built their own wealth. Not a fly-by-night, not somebody with a get-rich-quick scheme, but somebody who has built wealth over many, many years, who you can trust, who is willing to share their expertise and follow exactly their process. Ask lots and lots and lots and lots of questions. Any good mentor will actually welcome more questions than be annoyed or put off by them because they, as a successful person, will have probably gone through the same process. They won't have invented what they do. They'll have gained it from somewhere else. And they're only too glad to pass on those skills to others. But it's only by asking questions, and good mentors understand this, it's only by asking questions that they know that you're really invested in the process, that they know that you've got a good understanding, that they know that you can go away and implement the process properly. So find a good mentor that can take you forward with your wealth building process. Ask them lots and lots of questions all of the time. Follow exactly their steps. And finally, diversify. Back to what we said earlier, diversify your risk, spread your risk, and have your wealth in a number of different pots so they're all supporting and contributing to the whole, that your individual wealth pots are collaborating with each other by that diversification. So I hope you've really enjoyed these 5 tips. Please go away and implement them. If you haven't already, please click the button and subscribe. Hit the bell button so you get notifications of my weekly videos. Please do share because this is valuable knowledge that not everybody either knows or adheres to or follows. So please do share with anybody you feel may benefit, and please comment in the section below this video. Okay, look forward to meeting you soon.